voting in 2000.
Like you said to Trump, but they're getting beauty.
They said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsement from Georgia carriers that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Small Town Underground on this Thursday evening on the 19th of September. What an absolutely wild live stream it was last night, folks. And this is being pre-recorded, so I'm telling you, I've talked to several people today about what transpired yesterday with my tech. I know that it wasn't on my end, but I believe my gateway was attacked last night. So I had worked really hard on that show, had a lot of information to share out, and kind of got blocked out. So craziness abounds. It's primarily coming from Facebook, and although the Rumble link messed up, I just checked it this evening, and the show is up there. That being said, Facebook is liable to split this screen, this live stream. It's liable to knock me offline. Anything can happen tonight, but we are pre-recording this, so I appreciate you hanging out. I do have my comments pulled up as long as long as I don't split a stream, I'll be able to do this. But anyway, enough about that. I want to welcome Blake Elsberry. You've seen him a few times on the show. He was a wonderful guest. We would love having Blake. And tonight is kind of a study assignment. And this is some of my favorite type of media to cover, because we're going to be learning about a couple of bills, and a bill in particular and a resolution that is going to affect us all. And if you guys were able to tune in last night, there's a lot of things coming up that's going to be affecting us. And it's time that we get skin in the game and we start realizing what's coming at us, what our legislators are doing, what they're trying to pass in this state. And so, Blake, I appreciate you being on here with us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, Roy. I appreciate it.
Yes, we had a little bit of technical difficulties trying to get the slideshow to pull up, and we finally figured it out, and that's what took us so long to get out here. So, I'm going to kind of let you start off with an overview of what we're going to be discussing, and I'm going to finish setting this up.
Yeah, so we'll be discussing House Bill 581 and House Resolution 1022. House Resolution 1022 is what's going to be on the ballot in November. I've gotten a lot of questions, people come into the office and ask me about this a lot. And so what I did was we created a PowerPoint. I want to shout out to my wife for helping me pretty up the PowerPoint a little bit. My PowerPoint skills were a little rough around the edges, so she helped me out. So, basically just basic information on both what it does, what it doesn't do, and just so that the voters can be informed. Because we are voting on this in November, and it's a good bill. It's a good bill, but no bill is perfect, and everybody needs to make up their own mind and decision for themselves.
All right, so give us what's your take before we actually get into the meat and potatoes of HB 581? What is it?
So I think it's does a lot that we've been asking for on the local government level for years. That's positive. I think it's going to help homeowners.
Okay.
I think that you're going to see that there are some things where tax and we'll talk about it in the PowerPoint, but tax values don't disappear. They shift.
Right.
So if you take exemptions for one group, they're that burden's going to shift to somebody else.
Okay.
So you're going to see that burden shift to commercial, industrial, things of that nature, rental, because they can't get homestead.
Right. Taxes don't ever go away; they just go to a different place.
That's right. That's right. But there are things that's right. But there are things in this bill too to help offset some of that too. Offset some of the other things that you could see downrange from this bill. They've put some things in place that would help with that too. So we'll go over all that in this PowerPoint.
Okay. Are we ready to jump into 581?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll get started.
All right. So here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to let me just check one more thing before we get rolling. All right. Everything looks good. We're going to pull this down and start our slideshow, and then that way everybody can really get a good glimpse of this information and learn some stuff about what's going on. So here we go. So this is, let's get back up to the top here. Here we go. HB 581 by Blake Elsberry, sole commissioner of Chattooga County. So we'll start with the first slide here. All right.
All right. So it was signed into law on April 18th, 2024. 581 is contingent upon the passage of the constitutional amendment for HR 1022. That is what's actually on the ballot in November. 1022 actually allows for the local governments and schools to opt out of the floating homestead exemption that is in HB 581. If 1022 fails on the ballot, then that means HB 581 will also be repealed. If the constitutional amendment passes, then the bill takes effect January 1st, 2025. So the bill itself, is not something that usually you see on a referendum. The issue is because it changes the exemptions, then House Resolution 1022 is something that was required to be on a referendum. So if the resolution fails, the bill itself is done.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's does this happen a lot?
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot.
Say,
but like
I'm still
I said,
a little confused.
This is a really important bill. Like I said, it's got a lot of things in there that the local government's been asking for years. It's on a positive note. It addresses some of the inflationary increases we've seen in housing and things, but we'll go over all that.
Okay. All right. So basically, just so I'm learning along with everybody else, HB 581 passed. This is a resolution to be added to, and it has to
resolution that allows for local governments to opt out of the floating homestead exemption that's in the bill.
Okay.
If the resolution fails, then HB 581 will be repealed.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're moving along.
So you have your statewide floating homestead exemption in this bill. That's what everybody really is looking at on the homeowner side. So it implements a floating homestead exemption for local governments, counties, cities, and schools.
Okay.
And this gives a little description of what a floating homestead is for those who are not quite sure. Floating homestead is a type of homestead exemption designed to offset inflationary increases in value.
Okay.
It works by increasing the value of the exemption to offset inflation.
All right.
Your local governments may have some of these that they've done locally. whether it has a inflationary increase in it or is a complete freeze. Local freezes are still a type of floating homestead exemption.
Okay, gotcha. So here we're going to go over an example.
Yeah, so this is an example. So if you had a property taxable value of $100,000 and your taxable value increases the following year due to market changes to $110,000.
Right, $10,000 increase.
That's right. The exemption floats to be worth $10,000 of taxable value. Taxpayers still pays on the original base year value of $100,000.
So, okay, so this is an offset for any increases, right?
That's right. That's
basically.
Right. And because it has a 2%, well, I say 2%. Next slide, I'll show you what is.
So I'm hoping everybody out there understands this. So this is an exemption for this inflationary tax that we're seeing all across the board, and this sounds like something we definitely need to get into the law. Okay, here we go with the next one.
Yeah, so this is another example. So this has got the floating homestead example in there. So if you have a base year value is adjusted and will increase by a rate of inflation determined by the state revenue commissioner. So basically, this House Bill 581 has in it a inflationary rate. We think that more than likely they'll go by the consumer price index, and that being the case, you're looking at a 2 to 2.5% inflationary rate.
And this is for 2025?
This is for 2025. They will go by 2024's values.
So where you're at, what you're paying taxes for on 2024, basically saying with this into law, we can exempt anything.
You would freeze it, and the only thing that you would see would be an increase at the 2%. So let's say, for instance, CPI is 2%.
Okay.
If you take the same property with $100,000 and you base your value at 2% CPI, the following year the base value of $100,000 may increase by 2% and give an adjusted base value of 102%. So the exemption floats to be worth $8,000 of base value.
Okay.
Taxpayer would pay a taxable value of $102,000 in year 2. So if you had that $10,000,
okay,
and it allows for only a 2% floating increase, then you're only going to see $102,000, not $110,000.
I see. So
see what I'm saying?
You're saying like 2025, your increase goes up 10,000, and you exempt. And then the next year, it goes up $2,000 past that.
So no, right off the bat.
Okay.
So like if you got $100,000 and you're just going to see a $10,000 increase, with the 2% in there, what it'd do is you would only see a 2% increase. So instead of seeing 110, you would see 102.
Okay.
It's not going to go away with the complete 110.
Right.
It just keeps that.
I see.
Yeah,
It won't. You won't be allowed to increase any past 2%.
That's right.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay. Now, does that include whether? I guess what if no matter what, even if the taxes continue to rise past, if 2024 your land value went from 100 to 110, then 2025 it went from 100. Your value went from 110
so we're talking
to
about
100.
Values.
If it went from 110 to 115.
115. It doesn't matter. You're only going to see a 2% increase.
Okay, that's pretty sweet. I like that.
Yeah, you're only going to see 2%.
We should have done this like 15 years ago.
This is something that's been talked about for a long time.
Right. Okay. I'm starting to get it now. Okay. We ready for the next slide?
Sure.
All right.
So, so the floating homestead exemption, this is some other points. For homes first receiving this exemption in taxable year 2025, the base year assessed value will be 2024 assessed value. I think we talked about that.
Okay. Right.
Your value will be reset when the home is sold and can be adjusted for substantial property change. So the only thing that you would see is that 2% CPI increase, or let's say, for instance, you decided to build on a garage. You may see an increase in your value because of that.
Okay.
So it would be a physical property change.
Okay. And I'm guessing when you sell your home, that's when the property value will be reassessed, correct?
It would be reset at whatever it's revalued at when it's sold. Yep.
Okay.
The floating homestead exemption in 581 is in addition to and not in place of existing homesteads. So this is not going to replace anything that you have local government-wise. It is an addition to. It is just another tool in the tool belt. That being said, if you're going to pick whichever one benefits the homeowner the best.
Okay.
So when you're going to look at these exemptions, that's what you're going to look at, whichever one is best for the homeowner.
Okay.
Let's see. I think that's what I just said there. The taxpayer will see whichever the two exemptions is more beneficial.
Okay.
This includes any local floating homestead exemptions that are added in the future. So if your local government adds some sort of homestead exemption, if it's better or not as good as this one, whichever one is best will be the one that's utilized.
Okay.
The thing with this one that some local governments have had to look at is floating homestead exemption does apply to special service districts.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you have an M&O, an extra M&O millage rate for fire service,
okay,
or a special service district for, I don't know, public safety or something, some of the others that they have, this would apply to those.
Okay.
So you would see a difference in revenue in those as well.
All right.
And so local governments are going to have to take a look at that because, you're going to see a reduction in revenue.
Right,
for those.
right.
This will not apply to bond millage.
Bond. Okay, explain what bond millage is.
So bond millage basically is like if local government's taking out a bond for a project or so much, and they have to set a millage rate for those bonds. This would not apply to that.
Understood. Okay. Awesome. All right, let's go. Next one.
Okay. So there is an opt-out. And so that's what we're with the House Resolution 1022 is about.
Okay.
So each governing authority, school, city, and county, is a separate entity as far as property taxes go. So they may elect independently to opt out of the floating homestead exemption in 581, but they have to follow these procedures. The local governing authority must advertise and conduct 3 public hearings in intent to opt out and adopt a resolution. Just like when you did you didn't take the complete rollback and had to advertise a tax increase.
Right.
That's what you basically are having to follow.
Now, when this says adopt a resolution, this is the resolution from that county.
That entity. So
Okay.
like and the county can stay in and the school can decide to opt out. Or the school and the county can be in and the city decide to opt out. Or they may all 3 decide to opt out.
Okay.
They're all independent.
I got
So
you.
none of them is over the other one as far as authorization of opting out or not opting out.
Okay.
So you may have a county that stays in it, and you may have a city that opts out. All governing authorities that levy a property tax must follow the opt-out procedures individually to opt out of the floating homestead, what we just explained.
Okay.
This process has a strict time frame. Once the bill goes into effect January 1 of 2025, they have to do the opt-out procedures by March of 2025.
Okay.
They cannot opt out after that deadline.
Okay. So in other words, they don't opt out; they're automatically
They're in
enrolled.
it. They're in it.
What would be the benefit of opting out of this? Is there something else like?
We'll go over. I got some in some other
Gotcha. I'm
slides. Yep.
jumping ahead. Okay.
No problem. No problem.
Whoops. Did I miss something? Yeah. Okay. Here. Oh, let me get rid of that. All right. Here we go.
Okay. So another thing that 581 does is it revises the local sales tax. So HB 581 revises the existing 2% local sales tax cap, creating a new sales tax for property tax relief. Now, this is a sales tax that can only be used for property tax relief. And this is what I was telling you about, how they can offset some of the loss that they're going to see in property taxes with this bill. The local government can by putting in a sales tax, basically helping offset the property tax.
So, okay, keep going.
Okay, so the new sales tax for property tax relief may be levied 0.05% increments up to 1%. To be eligible for this, however, both county and all cities within the county that levy a property tax must in effect a floating homestead exemption. They must be in this bill.
I see. In other words, they can't raise the sales tax unless they're participating.
You can't participate in this sales tax to offset property taxes unless you're participating in the homestead exemption.
Okay.
The one created in this bill or a local one. So if they opt out of this, they can enact a local homestead exemption.
Okay.
So that's another caveat. It does not matter if the schools opt out or not, since they are ineligible to share in the proceeds of the tax without a separate constitutional amendment.
Gotcha. Okay. So in other words, yeah, they have to have their own amendment.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So this is new sales tax implementation. So you have to have an IGA, which is intergovernmental agreement.
Okay.
So the county and cities representing at least 50% of the municipal population of the cities that levy a property tax must enter into an intergovernmental agreement calling for the tax.
Okay.
The IGA shall specify the rate, duration, distribution, and set the ballot question. It cannot exceed 5 years in time frame. Tax must be approved through referendum. This is just like any other sales tax that we have. It's got to go on referendum.
Okay.
If the cities do not levy a property tax, then the county can go through the process independently.
Okay.
That would be something like Chattooga County, for instance.
Right.
Our largest city does not levy a property tax.
Okay.
So if we decide we want to take advantage of this, we just do it independently.
Okay.
If the city levies a property tax but opts out of the floating homestead exemption, then neither the county nor the city can levy the new sales tax.
Really?
Yes.
If the city levies a property tax but opts out of the floating homestead, then neither the county nor the city can levy the new
Yes.
sales
But
tax.
now the caveat to that is if the city enacts a local homestead exemption,
Okay.
then they could go into an IGA with the county if the county has a homestead exemption, whether it be this one or a local.
Okay.
And then they could levy the new sales tax.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
A lot of moving parts.
It is. I was going
Yeah,
to say, this
yeah.
is starting to be like, this is going to have to be like a multifaceted effort to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
So cities levying a MOST, which is a municipal option sales tax, are not eligible for that new
So
sales tax.
I guess that's a different program.
It is, and I don't have a lot to knowledge on municipal option sales tax because I've never been part of a
Right.
city local government, but that is something that cities can use.
Okay. I mean, it sounds a little overwhelming and a little confusing, but, overall it sounds like a decent thing.
We'll get down to some bullet points here in a minute.
Okay.
So this is some general information on the new sales tax. The Georgia Department of Revenue collects and sends the money to the county. The county is responsible for distributing the money to the cities in accordance with the IGA. That's how the process will work as far as the collection of the sales tax. All renewals of sales tax will still require a local act on the General Assembly in addition to an updated IGA. So it's just like when your local sales tax runs out and you have to re-up it and put it back on the referendum and go through the whole process again. Each taxpayer's property tax bill shall state the amount by which the new sales tax reduces their property tax. So if your local government takes advantage of this and they decide to use this new sales tax to reduce property tax, on your tax bill they will have to show by the amount this new tax reduced your property tax bill.
Okay.
Tax estimate at the bottom right of the assessment notices is being removed.
Okay.
That's a new thing. That's something that local governments has asked for because the tax estimate at the bottom of your assessment notice is false advertising.
Okay.
Because you don't know, is the county going to go up, down, stay? Right. Is the school going to go up, down, stay? Is the city going to go up, down, stay? Mm-hmm. So you get this assessment notice, and at the top it says this is not a bill. Mm-hmm. But nobody looks at that. They look at the number.
Right.
And that number is based on your new value at the current millage rate.
Okay.
Well, I've rolled back taxes all 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's not uncommon every time assessment notices go out for me to phone ring off the hook, people mad about their taxes going up. I'm like, your taxes aren't going up because I'll roll it back, but it's basically, like I said, false advertising.
Right.
So that's going away.
Okay.
This is in addition to the estimated rollback rate replacing last year's millage rate. So what they'll do is instead of having last year's millage rate on there like they normally do, they will have an estimated rollback rate in its place.
Okay.
The rollback rate shall be reduced annually by the millage equivalent of the net proceeds of this new tax received by the political subdivision during the prior taxable year.
Okay, you might want to explain that one.
Okay, so if you have X number of dollars of proceeds received by this tax, you have to roll back your millage rate to the equivalent of the proceeds you took in on that new tax.
Okay, I get it now.
So the state revenue commissioner shall not certify the tax digest for any political subdivision. That means school, city, state, school, city, county that is not in compliance with the use of this proceeds from this tax.
Okay.
So if you don't follow the rules, they won't approve your digest, and then you can't collect your property taxes.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Procedural property tax changes.
So we talked about some of those in the previous slide, but some of the other things it does is it creates an estimated rollback rate. We just talked about that. It also replaces the previous year millage rate on the assessment notices. That's part of that. If adopted millage rate exceeds the estimated rollback rate, a disclaimer is included on the tax bill stating name of governing authority exceeding estimated rollback rate and that is a result of a tax increase. So this is the other thing we've seen is, you have county may roll back completely and the school may roll back partially, or it may be vice versa. And, people will go, well, it's the county's fault my taxes went up, or it's the school's fault my taxes went up. And there's confusion because nobody unless you're going to the meetings and following
it's the carousel of finger pointing.
That's right. And so this will show you on your tax bill who did a complete rollback and who didn't. And if you're seeing an increase in your taxes, who caused that increase.
Where's the tax increases?
That's right.
In other words, it's providing the people some more transparency about
right.
how the taxes are working.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Wonderful.
It allows for Board of Assessors to appeal states' ratio study directly versus requiring local governments to appeal on their behalf. So the way that the ratio studies are right now, there are over 100 counties in the state of Georgia that are out of compliance.
Wow.
It is a huge issue.
Okay.
And it's not really on the county's faults. It's just the system, and you see how complicated this bill is.
Oh, yes.
When you start talking about appeals, ratio studies, and everything else, that's even more confusing. So when you have to appeal those violations, the Board of Assessors has to go through your local government. They have to get approval for those appeals and all that other stuff. This allows the Board of Assessors to say, hey, look, no, we're going to appeal this. We don't think this is accurate on the state side, and we're going to directly appeal it because they're the ones that do it anyway.
Right.
So, and they're independent of your local government anyway.
Okay.
So, this also modifies the 3-year lock, and it makes it to where a taxpayer only receives the lock if they win their appeal. So, this is an issue that they've seen in a lot of the metro counties. You'll have hedge fund companies and LLC corporations out of New York or even overseas that have purchased single-family homes, 2 single-family homes, and are renting them. So you're diminishing the housing stock for home ownership. And what they'll do is you'll have 900 homes out of one hedge fund and they appeal all 900. Well, they don't care if they win their appeal or not because they automatically get the 3-year lock. So if they get that 3-year lock, it locks in that value for 3 years. But once again, let's go back. Taxes don't go, the taxable value doesn't go away. It gets shifted, and the burden gets shifted to everybody else who owns a home.
I see.
So this is going to help deal with some of those situations that we see with a lot of these hedge fund companies buying up the housing stock.
BlackRock buying up houses everywhere.
Hey, and it's bad in metro counties.
Oh, yeah.
Bad
absolutely.
in metro counties.
I'm sure. Okay. Well, this sounded better and better. Okay.
It improves the sales ratio studies and helps prevent penalties on local governments and their taxpayers. It updates settlement conference statutes so that if neither the taxpayer nor the representative participates in good faith, the taxpayer shall not receive the benefit of the temporary 15% reduction in taxes owed and shall not be rewarded attorney's fees. I think that comes from, people appealing and then not showing up to some of the...
Just to appeal, right?
Yeah,
just to
or
lock things in.
railroad the system and
Sure.
and everything like that. Requires a chief appraiser to ensure every parcel in the county be appraised at least every 3 years. Now, this is something that they're supposed to be doing already, but this sets it into law.
Okay. Wow. And the chief appraiser, is that somebody local?
So your chief appraiser is hired by your Board of Assessors.
The reason I ask is because I'm sure you've kept up a little bit with Dalton and Danny Sane, where they had a group of outside consultants come in and supposedly place value on all these vacant structures and buildings. And so these will be local people? That are
it depends on what your assessor's office uses.
I see.
So the thing is, and I think this is where we get into some confusion with assessor's office. So an assessor's office is completely independent from your tax commissioner and your board of commissioners.
Okay.
Now your board of commissioners, most of the time they appoint your assessor board members.
Okay.
But those are all community members.
Okay.
And so, but your board of assessors, they do all the hiring and firing in that office. They hire your chief appraiser. They have their own budget that they have to negotiate with your board of commissioners with every year.
Okay.
And there is a statute that, for instance, if you have issues with a board of assessors member, you have to go through. You have to put a case in front of Superior Court and prove in Superior Court that they have been derelict in their duties to even remove one outside of their terms. So there's stipulations. It's a separation of powers.
Right.
A separation of powers. Because if you didn't do it that way, as frustrating as it can be sometimes on the local government side, if you didn't do it that way, it'd be real easy for a commissioner, board of commissioners, or a tax commissioner to, say, hey, this friend of mine, they do this. If one of them was over the assessors, it'd be real easy for some shady stuff to go on.
I understand.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Things to remember.
So the things you want to think about with this bill is the ability to opt out. So, you have this ability to opt out. They all opt out independently of each other. So once this bill becomes enacted, and I'm pretty sure it's going to pass, you want to be very vigilant about watching to see who starts having the 3 meetings. Something else to think about when we talked about this, taxes don't disappear. Taxes shift. If this bill passes, taxes will shift from homestead properties to other property types, which means your commercial, industrial, rentals, things of that nature. It does reward homeowners. The floating homestead exemption rewards homeowners who reside in the community for a long period of time after this legislation takes effect. So really, initially, you're not going to see a huge difference right off the bat. It's going to be 5-10 years down the road. And something else, too, that people need to think about, if you have a local government that has its own local enacted, whether it be a freeze or homestead exemption, initially this one may benefit you more than your local one, or vice versa, but you want to continue to keep an eye on it years in the future, because the one with the state may not be as big a benefit 5 years down the road as your local one is.
I got you.
Depending upon how it's set up.
Okay.
So taxation is a formula. So taxable value multiplied by millage rate gives the property tax revenue to meet local budgets. This could create an upward pressure on millage rates over time. So, for instance, you're going to have local government, especially your smaller counties and cities that levy a property tax. If they're getting way less revenue, and they're not immune to inflation either, you may see millage rates climb over time because of this, because they're going to need revenue to operate.
Okay.
Smaller impact in the early years with larger impact in the later years. You may see more schools than counties or cities opt out due to the 20 mil cap. So a lot of people don't know the schools have a 20 mil cap. They are not allowed to go over 20 mils. Now, I say that they can go over 20 mils if they pass a local legislation for that school system that allows them to go over 20 mils.
Okay.
But you're probably going to see a lot of schools opt out of this because of that 20 mil cap, because if you have this in place and you have the homestead exemption in place, they're only going to be able to go up to 20 mils. So as inflation continues to go up, they're not going to be able to get the revenue to be able to operate.
So from what I know about the school millage rate, they cannot go below 13% because
or they lose some state funding.
They lose the state funding.
Yeah.
So why would a school want to go up over 20 mils in the first place?
Well, with this, because you have the homestead exemption in there with that 2% inflationary increase, they're going to lose revenue, property tax revenue.
Okay.
And so the result is going to be, over time, you're going to see millage rates climb some. If they have to climb up, they can't go anywhere past the 20 mil mark. So, for instance, if they get to a point to where, we don't have enough revenue to operate, but we can't go over the 20 mil mark, but the exemptions, are in place, we can't get out of that either, it may put them in a position where they can't have enough funds to operate.
Okay.
So that's something to think about. Now, like I said, that cap can be exceeded with local legislation.
Okay.
And I think I said that, passed on a local referendum. So we go back to the pros and cons. I mean, it's definitely, I think, more pros than cons, but it's definitely something that we all need to be aware of and what it does. And, I hope that, people find this informative.
Oh, yeah. This is definitely informative. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it because, of course, I'm going to say the best form of taxation is no property taxes at all, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We're living in a perfect world.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So you tell me, Blake, as I'm going to check the comments, what are your pros and cons of this bill?
I think for larger governments, local governments. I think it's a win-win. It does a lot of things that local governments were wanting to have done as far as the procedures go for property taxes for a long time. I think for any large local government or medium-sized local government, they ought to be able to handle the property tax,
Right.
Free or inflationary homestead exemption. For some of the smaller ones, they may want to think about looking to opt out and then maybe setting their own thing locally. And the reason I say this because you got some counties. I mean, you've got some small counties that only have like 2,000 in population. Their budget's $7 million.
Right.
If you freeze this with a 2% inflationary cap, it's going to kill them.
Right.
I mean, it'll kill them. And you've got some small cities like that,
Right.
that are operating off of, couple $1 million every year. So, most of those are running bare bones as it is, and they don't have a whole lot of employees, and I can tell you from experience, I mean, it's cost, I think we talked about this before, but, for us to pave the same amount of pavement last year as this year, it's double.
Right.
Our health insurance increases were large this year, almost 17%. And so local government's not immune to all that. So I think some of the smaller ones you'll see them opt out, but I think for the most part everybody's been pretty positive about this bill.
I mean, it sounds positive. Granted that I'm accepting the fact that we're paying all these taxes, so I want to play devil's advocate for a second on this bill. So we've seen some major tax increases, not necessarily from the commissioners or the county seat, but like our education system. And I think a lot of people like myself really didn't understand it. I didn't even know this year that we had 2 separate millage rates, right? And I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people who just are scratching their head trying to figure out what is going on. So you're here, we have 2 separate millage rates. We understand that the county takes care of one, the education department takes care of another. And to me, it almost seems like the more counties that you look like, Walker County did about a 7.11% school tax or property tax increase, whereas like Catoosa County, they had to up theirs 30%. But after you start looking and talking to people from all over Georgia, you kind of see this blanket increase all over the state to where it was like the state, to me, this is me talking, it looks like to me that the state was just handing out pieces of paper saying, hey, we've got to get to this increase, right? And so we've had a lot of heated debates and exchanges over all these property tax increases. And mind you, that's right off the backs of the citizens that, but is this something like we should have already had things like this enacted in the state? We are paying a state income tax, a federal tax, property taxes out the wazoo. So why now?
I think a lot of it is the fact of how volatile the past 2 years have been with home values.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, we know how volatile the May elections were. And
Absolutely.
We've had those conversations. You have over 150 new commissioners coming in January.
Wow. 150 new commissioners. Wow.
And that didn't happen just willy-nilly.
Right.
You didn't have that many people who just didn't do a good job. I mean, we're physically taking in over $500,000 less in property taxes since I've started in 4 years.
Right.
That's huge to be able to do that and we've lowered county debt by over $3 million now. So, and there's a lot of success stories like that from people who are leaving office that got beat because of the home values and people not really quite understanding the fact of the separation between your divisions of government and the separation between home values and your millage rates and what your commissioners can and cannot do, what your tax commissioners can and cannot do, what the assessors can and cannot do. There are things that I don't like about the system. There's things that I don't like about the way it's set up, but it is the system we have right now. And until we have legislation like this and more legislation that can clean it up, that's what we're going to have to do.
Gotcha. I mean, obviously, it doesn't sound bad if you were in command. Like, what is the? We've looked at the separation between city and the county and the education. What's the best outcome with this bill for a county? Let's just do an average population over 50, maybe let's say 80,000 or under. And I know what you said about the smaller ones, but what would be the best outcome? Would you want to have the school board and the city and the county all on one page?
I would. Yeah, I mean, I would, because it makes it easier. It makes it uniform. If the school gets to a point to where, look, we just can't function, we're having issues being able to financially make it to function with what we are required to do and with the programs that we have, and they've got to do something locally to increase their 20 mil cap. I would say address that when you get to that point. That would be my ideal goal, what I'd like to see. But I think you're going to see it's just going to be all over the place.
Oh, yeah, I imagine it's probably going to. It's going to be a little wild. So just for a recap, this bill was passed, but the referendum. The referendum
is the resolution.
1022, the resolution.
The resolution. Okay. So the resolution has to pass.
Okay.
So the resolution has to pass, or everything is repealed.
And that will be on the ballot this November. So do we have a copy of what the resolution says so people can be looking?
Okay. I should have brought one with me, but I do not. But basically, it's the opt-out part of it, right, that allows for local governments to opt out if they need to.
Now, why was that? That was in a resolution, I guess, that was created after the bill, right?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know. I think it's
just wondering.
Yeah, I think it's part of it. I think the thing is you can't have. So you get into the source of kind of unfunded mandates when you start talking about we're going to enact this bill that makes you have less property
revenue. That's what I was trying to get at.
And so they can't really do it like an unfunded mandate. So you have to have an opt-out procedure for local government.
Especially like you're saying, for the smaller governments who could do better than what this deal could give them based on their population, their land, etc.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. See, that's making a lot of sense to me, folks. A lot what we're talking about here. This bill was passed. The resolution 1022 must pass in order to give county seats the ability to opt out. So I totally get that now. So that's good. Well, let's go check out our comments real quick and see if I can get myself straight. Dang. All right, let's see here. Lauren Diana has a comment. Thank you for watching. She says, is this a result of the absolute nightmare of the past year or so in the state? As in, people state that boards of commissioners and or sole commissioners are responsible for property tax increases when that's incorrect. In our county, the county administration was the only government entity out of both school boards and the cities that took the full rollback.
Yeah,
it's pretty accurate, I'd say.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah, I mean, same thing in Walker County. Our commissioner rolled back the tax rate. We had a 7.11% increase in school. They voted on, which was right off the backs of property owners. But finding all this out and realizing that there was two separate millage rates to begin with, people's minds are blown. And then we've looked at Catoosa County, which was just Catoosa County has been like wildfires this past year, and to find out that they had to raise their school taxes by like 28%, that was huge.
Well, and you want to ask for budget. So I mean, like if you've got a county government that's not doing a complete rollback, or they're going to take an increase. Same with county schools or cities. They ought to be able to tell you, like, hey, look, it's because we're having to increase. Our insurance went up $200,000,
right,
or the cost of this went up this much, or this cost of this went up. If somebody's telling me that information, okay, I get it. But so and that, you just never know. I mean, you're going to have to ask those questions when you see those increases. Okay, we see these increases. Where in the budget is the reason for these increases?
Right. Right.
Show me the hard data.
Absolutely. I just went to the last commissioners meeting here in Walker over something completely different, but they had the budgets available. They signed the budget. Budgets are they're a little hard to look through. There's a lot of numbers in there, and you have to do a lot of studying. And thankfully, there's a lot of more people now that are open to getting together and sitting down and going through some of this stuff, because I think it's all about keeping the government, county government, transparent, accountable, where everybody's on the same page.
Well, and I think people need to realize too that budgets are an estimated thing. They are not concrete. They are fluid. Okay. They change. You can have budget amendments throughout the year. You know, if you're a county or city where, you know, you're either on a fiscal year or you're on a calendar year. So if you're on a calendar year, but your insurance renews in June,
Right.
you may see an increase in your insurance in the middle of your budget year.
Okay.
So it's going to cause your budget to be off.
I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see. I didn't really know that. I thought the budget was the budget, but the budget is fluid.
And so and let's think about this. You know, we've got offices like your DA's office, some of the other offices that are still short employees. So they may budget like they have full staff, but they may be under budget for years to come. You may have some, like your public works, for instance, or your water department, as equipment, materials go up because of inflation, just like we're talking about asphalt and different things going up. Those budgets may increase because I can tell you right now, there's certain vendors like your fuel, your pipe vendors, a lot of your hard material, your rock, your chert, things like that. When you go to put those bids out every year, some of them will put a clause in there and basically say we cannot tell you that
guarantee
this price because of inflationary increases.
Can't guarantee the quote.
That's right. That's right. So
Understood.
you know you may see that changes. So you have to realize it's an estimate, but it's the best thing that you can do as far as making sure that you're kind of keeping in line with. You're going to see your budgets for local government go up.
Gotcha.
In this atmosphere right now,
Yes.
it's going to go up.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we're living in clown world right now. It's upside down. So of course, and I think that's the biggest thing. And we the people, the citizens, have to realize and remember that we stayed asleep at the wheel for so long, and now it's affecting everybody. And we should have had that sort of partnership with transparency and accountability from the beginning. And I think that we're now going to see that it's no longer business as usual. Everything's going to be questioned. Every move. We're going to have more people going to these meetings and waking up because.
Well, when I think too, one of the things that I've talked about with some people is civics. How many people really know how local government operates? What each elected officer does, what they're allowed to do in state law, and what they're not allowed to do in state law, and how they interact with each other.
That's a big one.
You know, I mean, honestly, and I mean, I think a lot of it has nothing to do with as far as like, you know, kind of like overseeing or overwatching them as much as it is educating ourselves on the actual facts of how they operate, so that we know when they're making decisions, while they're making the decisions that they are, what law or rule may be in place that's forcing them to make those decisions or causing them to make those decisions. And, you know, is it something that we can discuss with them? Say, hey, look, I know that you're making this decision based on this, but have you thought about this?
Right.
I think that it's more of an education and educating ourselves on how everything operates.
Absolutely. I agree. Okay, let's go here to make sure I didn't skip any. Lauren Diana says, well, it's incorrect to say commissioners are responsible for increases if the commissioner takes the full rollback. I mean, I would absolutely agree. So, and that's things we're learning, right?
Yeah.
As we move forward. Jennifer Tudor, so good to have you with us this evening. Good info, guys. Thank you both. Hey, we appreciate that. I want to do a lot more. We've got another session coming up in Georgia. We need to stay on top of these bills. We need to be contacting our legislatures. We need to let them know how we feel about all this stuff. So absolutely. Betty Brady, good to have you, Betty. Says, thank you, Blake Elsberry, for all you've done and still do for Chattooga County. Yeah, it's amazing. You can just get a commissioner to come in here and sit down and share this law. And mind you, people, you can help me share this live stream out through YouTube and Rumble or Facebook, because this is the entire state of Georgia we're talking about here. And we just went through an entire bullet point of useful information about the killer taxes, right? And this is a little bit of tax relief that the more that we know and understand, the more that we can convey with our county seats, our commissioners, our school boards, and let them know how we feel about this. So help me share this out. Jennifer Tudor also says, that's one of the main problems. People don't know what to ask, and they're not trying to understand local government. Instead, they're listening to gossip. Well said. I mean, that's the age-old, what is that game where the kids stand in a line and each one of them whispers in each other's ear, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to change. We're trying to change that. We're trying to bring a light to these bills, make them easily accessible and understood, where people can ask questions and understand what these bills are all about. And it seems like we get inundated with these, especially during a legislative session, right? So we can get a little ahead, and the more people that can watch this and listen to Blake and look at his presentation, the more you can understand what 1022 is. And the next time that you go into a voting booth and you see 1022, you're not going to be confused and just be like, oh, yes or no. You're going to know what this bill is about and the potential that it has for you and your checkbook, right?
Yeah, definitely. And moving forward, all of the committee meetings, all of the floor sessions, all the legislative meetings, even the summer committee meetings are streamed live on the Georgia Legislature site.
Right.
And they are archived.
Okay.
So you can go back and look at them. So I will tell you, on my lunch break from my desk, when I'm eating my lunch, that's what I do.
Right.
During the summer, I watch the committee meetings,
Yep.
especially on any topics that I see, like the taxes, or I'm following the one about the freshwater, access.
Oh, yeah,
yeah, they got a committee meeting coming up.
Saw
for
that. Yeah, we need to cover that someday soon as well.
Rural development is another good committee. I've actually
Yes.
attended one or two of those committee meetings. And then, like I said, the session, you can watch it live. And so, a lot of it is pomp and circumstance, but you get close to sign a die and you get a lot of stuff moving.
Right.
And it changes very rapidly.
Sure. And I'm not trying to throw stones and everything, but as we are progressing through learning about our state government, we're finding out about development authorities, joint development authorities, county development authorities, people that we have no idea who's appointed on these boards, what they're doing. The more that we know, the more transparency can take place. Okay, it's not I'm not calling people out, but if nobody is ever watching, then who watches the watchman, right? If we're not doing our civic duty? I mean, this past week alone, I went to a commissioners meeting. I went to my first school board meeting, and it wasn't for any other reason than to show up, find out what they're doing. Get a little glimpse of what's going on before I become enraged next year and I'm pounding my fist, on the podium because I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, because there's a process to everything. I mean, within our political parties, we have a process of how we appoint people and how
Right.
we elect to do things. So it's the same thing with any board, committee, subdivision of local government, subdivision of the state.
Right.
So just knowing the knowledge of how it's established, who's in charge of what the roles are, that gives you an idea of the structure, and then you can go from there about educating on what they actually do, what they are allowed to do in law,
Right.
what they aren't allowed to do in law.
100%. All right, I'm going to make sure. It looks like I got through all the comments. So, Blake, I'm going to give you the last word on this. And
Well, I just appreciate you having me on. I hope
Anytime.
it's informative, and
It was.
I hope I didn't confuse anybody.
No, and feel free. I've got the PowerPoint.
Yep.
Blake is very easily accessible. As you know, in Chattooga County, there's going to be another commissioner that's taking over, and Blake Elsberry is not going anywhere.
Nope.
And he's going to be very active in the county, and we're going to be trying to continue to educate people straight
Yep.
down the line.
Yeah, it's
know.
Anybody can call and they have a question, whether it's
Yes.
about this or any other piece of legislation. Let me know.
Yes.
And if I don't know, I'll call somebody that does. And,
That's right.
Definitely, you have not seen the last of me.
That's
for
right. And I want to urge people two things. Number one, get involved in your local political party. Find out what's going on in your state. Start making conversations with your commissioners and your school board. Let them know that you're a citizen of the county, and because every bit of this affects you, you need to start getting involved. And you don't have to go to every meeting, but you can make one or two meetings. You may be the person that can be able to help an entire community of people understand what is going on, right? And I urge everybody, too, if there's certain bills that are coming up on the legislature, I'm telling you, we're going to be looking hot and heavy. You thought we were bad the first session. This one's going to be wild on top of everything we have going on. But if you want to know about a certain specific bill, reach out to me. Reach out to Blake. We will call our legislature. We'll find out whatever we can about the bills.
Yeah.
Because that's very important. The people that are under the Gold Dome, we do not work for them. They work for us. And the only way they're going to know is if you're involved and you're letting them know what you want and what you do not want. It's that simple.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And to add to that, I'll add two things. One, all your meetings with local entities, whether it's school board, city, county, your chamber of commerce, your board of assessors, all those are public meetings.
Right.
They have a regular schedule, whatever their schedule is. So when you see those meetings, it's open to the public. It's open to anybody to want to come and listen and watch, and sometimes they'll even allow you to have time to ask questions.
Yep.
But also on the state level, yeah, definitely follow the legislation, make your voice heard, because I'll tell you, you have over 2,000, 3,000 bills sometimes, during a session, just one session. There's no way that any legislator can look at every one of those, and they have to vote on every one of those.
That's right.
And so they rely on the lobbyists that are up there to give them the information on those bills that may be specific to what that lobbyist is working on.
Which I can't stand, but it's true.
How do you remedy that? We remedy that by local individuals getting involved.
Sure, don't let the lobbyists speak for you.
That's right, and voicing your concerns.
Absolutely.
And that's what we've done. My involvement with the county the last 4 years in our county group, statewide county group, that's what they do. You have lobbyists, and they're going to make sure that they have the ear of those people, those legislators. So you're going to want to make sure that you have the ear of those legislators too, because you're in their district, you're the voter.
Absolutely. Agreed. And hey, while we're on the subject, tomorrow morning Atlanta's I believe it's the last state election board meeting down at the Gold Dome. I'm going to be going down there in the morning. I'm going to be doing some interviews, hanging around with the Georgians for Truth at the press conference, just kicking around at the Capitol. Exercise your right if you want to go down there. And find a place to park. We can go around, hang out, do some interviews with people. This is where it's at. Getting involved, letting your voice be heard. It's your state house, okay? And also, I have a flyer coming out hopefully later this evening, if not tomorrow, on the next camping event. That's going to be a local event that's going to feature a lot of music for it's a good little patriot camp out. But anyway, I think that's it. We're going to wrap it up. And wouldn't you know, Blake, we made it through on fascist book. So appreciate all y'all out there. Again, feel free to reach out to me, especially if there we go. Jeff Conley, good to see you. Need watch. She's provided. Antonio Jones, my brother, thank you. Thank you guys for fighting up there. I appreciate you. And Jeff says, please post websites to watch. Okay. Will do. And we'll continue to share it. And again, can't stress this enough. This is the entire state of Georgia, and you just had a great presentation by a sitting commissioner of this state that has given you the opportunity to understand this. So please share it out there. We are on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. I'll be posting this to X later, and Telegram, and a few other places. I think that's it. So you guys, y'all have a wonderful evening. I will see you next Wednesday, and you guys take it easy.
The legislature legalized unverifiable voting in 2000.
Like you said to Trump, but they're getting beauty.
They said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsement from Georgia carry that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign.